Welcome inside another edition of the pregame presented by Twitch. I'm Vince Sapienza, coming from Raiders HQ, alongside, as always, an 8-year NFL veteran, former Raiders running back, among other hats he has and continues to wear. He is Rashad Jennings. Rashad, what's going on? Happy week 3. We have a lot to get into for the Raiders' next road test, but before we look ahead, we have to look back at the week that was. A lot of build-up, a lot of hype to the home opener for the Silver and Black at Allegiant Stadium, a divisional game. What were your takeaways from week 2 against the Chargers?
You know, it was a hard-fought physical battle up front, which I expected. It's unfortunate, anytime you're playing in a division, you take a L, it counts twice, it hurts. But I did see some upside. I saw some things you need to correct and kind of focus and hone in on. But the Raiders look good. They were competitive. They played to the very end. No lag, no slag at all. But it's not easy to take a L early in the division.
Yeah, so let's stay there for a second and talk about the mental part of it, if we could. A lot has been made, and maybe rightfully so. I'll let Raider Nation kind of be the judge and jury on that. But in terms of the schedule, it is what it is, right? The Chargers had a long break leading up to that game. The Raiders were coming cross-country back home. Now they're on a short week against a team that also had a long break, playing on a Thursday night in week 2. What is the physical toll playing on a Monday night, the last game of the week, and then getting ready on a short turnaround going cross-country? Physically, mentally, emotionally, everything that goes in that. What are your memories from your playing days on those types of situations?
Yeah, when you have a quick turnaround, I feel like, honestly, for me, I always felt that I had a better game on a shorter week. And it wasn't necessarily because I played well or extraordinarily better than my opponents. It was that I took care of my body and I had a better routine to handle than other guys. So I break it down like this so people at home can understand from a professional athlete standpoint how these things work. If myself, I was told to run a 100-yard sprint along with the rest of the team. Cool, 100 yards is 100 yards. You run at full speed, you're going to get tired, right? And then they give you 15 seconds to come back to the line and run it again. And then 15 seconds to run it again. It's not about the person that can run the fastest, it's who can recover the quickest. Is what's going to help in the latter part of those hundreds. So after the 10th 100, I stand the strongest. Why? Because my condition is different. Maybe the speedsters can get me a couple times on the first few, but I recover quicker. So because of my ability to take care of my body, sleep in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber, MAT, chiropractic care, all these things, massage, I was always bright-eyed and ready, quicker than my opponents. Whereas if they had a full week, now it's kind of back on an even playing field.
You were probably eating kale too, weren't you? You were probably eating couscous.
Hey, that's the place to go, folks. To go to Whole Foods, get some kale. Heck, I was in Costco stacking up. You couldn't tell me nothing. Popeye is real. Get my greens.
Well, a man who does not need any tips with the physical fitness is one Ashton Jeanty, and I think that kind of dovetails nicely into the conversation that we are going to have heading into week 3 in terms of keys of the game. Now, obviously, he played 54 snaps, I believe it was, in week 1. His carries dropped to 11 in week 2. A lot's been made about the workload for Ashton Jeanty. Again, tough day at the office for a guy like Geno Smith. Tough day at the office for a guy like Ashton Jeanty in week 2. But let's stay on Ashton for a hot second. And I want to get into the conversation of workload. Okay, you are somebody that lived that and knows what that is all about. How important is rhythm? What does rhythm mean to you as a running back? And as it pertains to Ashton, what do you think, is the best course? Is he a guy that needs the ball regardless of the outcome just to get going and to wear guys down?
Yeah, I say this as a running back. We need the ball. We need to be fed. We hold down that position for a reason. And I compare a running back, if you will, to a drummer for a jazz band. If he only hits that drum one beat every 10 seconds, it's hard for him to get in the rhythm and in the groove. He needs consistency. He needs to get in the rhythm of the music, in the pocket of the music, and he starts to feel it, and then he can create. But if you only ask, hey, man, I just give you every once in a while, just make sure you hit that boom every time. It's like that's all you're going to get. You need a solo sometimes to go at it. So I think as Ashton Jeanty, and we look across the league, just history, Barry Sanders averaged 20 carries a game. Adrian Peterson averaged 18 a game. Curtis Martin averaged 20. Emmitt Smith averaged 20. So when you look at the top leaderboard of all-time rushers, they got the ball a lot more than anybody else because they are built different. And I think Jeanty is one of those guys that are built different, but it creates confidence in yourself and the team. It controls the clock the whole entire time. Play action all of a sudden is wide open. You can use the run to open up the pass game. And then the wear and tear. You want to wear down defenses. You want to beat them down to the point where in fourth quarter, they can't do anything.
Yeah, I want to attack this a couple different ways because, Chip Kelly talked this week about, look, as much as we would love to run Ashton Jeanty and put him out there every single snap, we also want him to be around and be ready to go in week 12, 13, 14, not just weeks 1 through 4. So while I understand that, there also seemed to be an understanding from Pete Carroll this week saying, yeah, we need to get this guy some more carries. Now, I also understand one of the big praises we were giving Ashton Jeanty week 1 was his pass protection, right? He was really good. There was a couple issues week 2 against the Chargers. There was the fourth play of the game. He goes the wrong way, zigged when he should have zagged on a play, and he gets pulled out. What is the leash on young players, and how would you treat it? And are some players different than others? Like, is the 6th overall pick, should he be given more leeway than maybe not the 6th overall pick?
I wouldn't say they should get given leeway. No, I think you handle a course of action across the board the same. However, when it comes to Ashton Jeanty, who's a young running back who will be a stud, who is a stud, but his production will be a stud in the near future. I think you take him out, but you don't take him out because he did wrong. You take him out because you want him to do right. And there is a finite difference between that. You bring him to the sideline, your running back coach is in his ear, your head coach may whisper something, but you are trying to educate him, not, hey, you're punished. This is what you get when you don't do right, because now he's thinking about doing what's right rather than thinking about being creative, thinking about running somebody, thinking about playing football. He's just thinking about doing what's right. And you never want any player to be in that kind of position. So I think young players, it takes time and it takes a curve, but I also will say this. When you watch that, folks, I dare anybody to go YouTube that particular play where he went the wrong way. If you watch it, that linebacker, because Jeanty stepped the wrong way, the linebacker stepped away as well. And that actually helped the stack double team with the guard and tackle to climb to him. If for some reason Gino would have handed him the ball on that side, Jeanty had a wide open hole backside. It was a counter. So guarantee you that play, if they're paying attention, should be put in because he stepped the wrong way, unorthodox, the defense was unorthodox and created a huge gaping hole. So hopefully they put that in now.
Ashton Jeanty did say, like one of the things he is continuing to learn and figure out is the playbook and knowing it like the back of your hand. Tell us, how difficult is learning an NFL playbook, especially coming out of college? Like, how much more intricate is it than your college days?
It depends on how you are as a student, and it depends on what kind of teachers you have. I would say the owners of professional athletes, I personally, y'all have to understand this with all due respect. I think that it is on the player. I always considered my running back coach or assistant coaches of kind of just there to make sure everything's going accordingly. But as a professional, you contract out professionals to get a job done. So when I hire a plumber, I don't hire him, I do it myself. But if I was to hire a plumber, I wouldn't expect me to sit here and coach him up and teach him on how to plumb. I hired you to do this. So the same thing, when you hire a professional running back, you expect him to be a professional out there. Jeanty, young, things happen, right? I don't expect to see this quite often.
Hmm.
He takes it hard on himself. But it is going back to the playbook. It's there's but so many ways. I say this emphatically. There's so many ways to run a power left or power right. You just call it different things. Outside zone left, outside zone right. You just call it different things. Some people say river, right outside zone, right? Lake, or whatever it is. But these things are elementary to the game, but it's all the other pressures that can cause you to stumble. And I think he's going to slow it down. And because he hasn't had that big game yet, there's a lot of pressure on the first overall running back drafted sixth overall to perform. And when you see your counterparts across the league performing higher than you kind of get these questions and nagging and social media. So he's going to have a good game and settle in. And I think the rest will be history from there.
What have you seen from the Raiders' offensive line through 2 weeks? Again, I know still small sample size, but what have you seen, and what do you expect out of the matchup in terms of the running game, specifically to the offensive line against Washington on Sunday?
When the Raiders get a hat on a hat, I see a lot of good things happening and developing in the run game. I think right now it's just a couple errors. You cut on the tape, you got a guard or a tackle looking one way when possibly they shouldn't. You don't see the stack doubling as well. And this is not a knock. This is actually a good thing to recognize, because it's not because the players and the team and the offensive line, the strength of the unit, it's not that they're getting blown up. Right? It's not that they're bad. It's just we just got to get on the same key every time, because when you're off schedule in NFL, hey, you can run well first, second, third, and then first down first. You miss one time, and now you're behind the sticks. And so that's what we have to do up front and everywhere, is eliminate mental errors, not beat ourselves, put a hand on a hat, make sure you're in the gaps. And I think the rest will kind of handle itself. But we have the personnel to be great. We're just not being consistent up front, consistent in the running back room right now. And I think they would say that as well. And so the only time there's a problem, folks, just like I went to school to study psychology and sociology, I want to be a pre-merit emerita counselor. One of the things that I would tell you, the same thing across the board. The only time there's a problem, truly, is when you don't recognize that there is one. We recognize there's a problem, so there really isn't one.
Mm-hmm.
We will get better at it, right? We will study it, and we will address it.
Rashad, you just blew my mind. You just philosophized my mind, and I need to take a step back, take a breath. And we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about Geno. And you talked about consistency. He was the story of week 1 against the Patriots. He was the story again against the Chargers for very different reasons. Now, Geno is a veteran. He's gone through highs and lows. But I think what the statistics and history has shown us is that week 2 was an anomaly for Geno Smith. That is not the norm. So do you think he settles into that median range week 3 against Washington? And what kind of opposition do you think that they pose against Geno and this offense in totality in DC?
Yeah, when you lose in the division, what happens? It hurts twice, man, because you really feel the emotion of a locker room. Because we all understand in the NFL, the quickest way to the path to the playoffs is winning your division. So when you lose one, it's a dang. When you lose out of the division, it's like, okay, all right, we got to get better. You lose in the division, you feel almost like college football, where if you lose one game, you can kiss the national championship goodbye almost in certain conferences. So what we have to do going into that third game is make sure the mental psyche is proper. Now, that means leaning on veteran leadership. Now, that focuses on who are the veterans on the offensive side of the ball. Geno Smith. I expect a big, consistent game from Geno Smith, not him having to play outside of himself. Geno's a great quarterback. He's just going to facilitate right. He's not going to reach or stretch. I think when you're in that divisional game, sometimes you try to do, because it counts, you want to do more sometimes than what's demanded, especially when you see so many mental errors across. He's a quarterback. It's all on him. He feels like it. He's seeing what's going on. But I expect him to settle in this week on the road, away from the noise, playing against a team in the Commanders who have a good defense, but they are without their star quarterback, which makes a big difference. And I expect the veterans to step up. Maxx Crosby expect a good game and emotional leadership on the defensive side of the ball, and Geno Smith expect a good game and emotional leadership on that side of the ball.
Yeah, Rashad, I probably buried the lead a little bit. Jane Daniels is officially out. It will be Marcus Mariota starting for the Washington Commanders on Sunday. I want to get to that in just a hot second, but you just said something that kind of piqued my interest. You know, Jackson Powers-Johnson did not play week 2 due to a concussion. He was a full participant, cleared from concussion protocol this week. He looks like he's going to be available in Sunday. He's not a veteran per se, but a guy that brings a lot of energy. And I'm curious, you know, in a week 2 game like against the Chargers, home opener, bright lights, everybody's hyped up, right? Now you go across the country and you might be dragging a little bit. You might need to lean on those veterans to kind of get the guys up. Back in your days, who was that guy? Who or guys that was, you know, maybe after an emotional roller coaster of a week, the very next week, you kind of leaned on them to pull you back into the fight and get you up?
You know, in my younger days, I actually kind of looked at a guy named Montel Owens. He was a special team player. That was like why he was on the team. He played running back, but again, he was a special team guy. He kind of always had this, like, I don't know if he lived in our world sometimes, kind of like joy about him.
Yeah.
And you couldn't rattle him. It didn't matter what the weather was. He wearing the same clothes. You know, he ain't gonna get an umbrella if it rains. Like nothing affected him. And so when you take an L and you see a guy so happy with life, and it reminds you, yeah, I got to get back on the board with his guy. So I would say Montel Owens is somebody that was younger. And as I got older, I tried to become that guy. But, you know, Eli Manning, though, he was another guy that was so consistent with his approach to the game, how he prepared first in, last out, excuse me. And he didn't let the noise of, and he had a lot of noise in that locker room. He didn't let the noise of media bother him. He didn't let people talk about how goofy he was bother him. He legit looked at everything kind of figuratively with a smile and a beer. I feel like nothing phased him. And because of that, watching his consistency, it made you feel that too. So sometimes you don't need folks always the guy to kind of hype you up or calm you down. Sometimes you just need to see somebody handle the weather with a simple smile. And it can get a lot of people back on board.
You know, it's interesting you say that. Obviously, I don't get to experience the players' lounge. We're in the locker room just a few times a week, but it feels like a lot of those guys are on the defensive side of the ball. Not to say that they're not on the offensive side of the ball, but as we transition to talk about the defense, you know, the veterans, you talk about a Landon Roberts, guy that's been there, done that, right? A Jermaine Pratt, a Devin White, who has been unbelievable early on this season, leading the team in tackles, I believe tied for the 11th at this point. But when you look for those players, right, and as we transition to talking about no Jaden Daniels, it'll be Marcus Mariota, what is the challenge for this defense that has played exceptionally well early on this season, specifically in the second half of games?
You said what are the challenges?
Right.
The biggest challenges for these types of games, honestly, is preparing for the third downs and making sure that the offense isn't staying in front of the sticks. Now, in this particular game, because correct me if I'm wrong, obviously they were out with their star quarterback. They're also out with a veteran running back as well in Elk.
Austin Eckler.
Sorry, I call him Elk because I know him personally.
Austin
Yeah,
Eckler?
got a personal relationship. Yeah, so with him being out, you know, it kind of, as a veteran and listening to so many of my counterparts that play defense, when a star player's not in, you smell blood in the water and you want to attack, right? And you want to dial up as many blitzes as possible to see how the quarterback handles it. You know, and that gets your DBs very excited because they know they have the potential to get a one-on-one, play inside leverage, put the demand on an amazing throw to make a pick or make a play and get off the field. So I think in this particular situation, the Raiders are setting in a really good position. Now, Mariota is no slouch at all. But however, I think him having a lot of pressure out there in Washington, trying to carry this team in a way that Daniels does, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him. So if he's going to have, you might as well put it on him. Pressure him early, pressure him often. Let's see how he responds to it.
Yeah.
But you do, as a veteran, on the defensive side of the ball, you do put a lot of pressure on yourself to make sure you can get that team off.
Raiders D coordinator Patrick Graham spoke this week and said, the real guys that are going to be in the kitchen, the guys that are going to be really strained, if you will, are the guys on the edges and that intermediate area of the defense because of the RPOs, because of the dangers the quarterback can have with his legs running, going to the right, going to the left, making the throws, making the runs. That was talking about Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota. So I hear that and I say, I hear Maxx Crosby, Malcolm Kuntz, and I'm hearing those linebackers, which we just discussed. But I also hear that could be a real opportunity for a guy like Max, an elite edge rusher, an elite pass rusher, to game wreck the whole thing. How do you see it in terms of that opportunity?
Big time. Big time. Maxx Crosby is one of those, he's slippery. I tell you another guy that, it's a bunch of guys, but Matt Crosby, I don't think you could put a one-on-one matchup with him and feel good about yourself on third downs. You always want to add chip help. You always want to add a tight end help. And what that does, folks at home, if you've never been on that field, when you have to add a chip help, that means that the running back is not getting in his route immediately, which then takes another spot for the quarterback to throw. When you add in the tight end chip, it means that you're not getting your tight end out in a route immediately. And so then that also means you have 6 or 7 people that can't run a route immediately. That allows your defense to get into proper depth, linebackers to get in the right spots, to key in, and it makes a big difference. So with Maxx Crosby, his presence alone demands so much attention, 2 or 3 guys at a time. I mean, it opens up the rest of the team, but he still somehow slips through and still makes it. And him being one of the highest paid, his attitude towards the game, he wants to win a championship. There's no doubt about that with him. He's that kind of guy, and he wants to compete regardless of what the scoreboard says. So I think he's licking his chops this week. I really, really, really do.
I did mention Devin White as well. You texted me earlier in the week saying he's a monster. What are you seeing as he seemingly it's a bit of a renaissance, turning back the clock, however you want to phrase it. Devin White seems to be that guy that he was in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, he's an old school player. He kind of reminds me a little bit like of a London Fletcher, where his stats are probably better than the all-time greats, but he's just not always mentioned in that category. And London Fletcher's a ridiculous football player. And I think he's the same as White. White is everywhere. You can count on him. You play it, and move on. You don't worry about it. It's like the greatest investment ever that you could just place it there and don't even worry about it. You'll get a return. And he riles up a defense because he plays with an edge that kind of is contagious. Some players just make plays and okay. And then some players were like Odell Beckham. You catch the ball, it's like you can't help but to get excited. When White makes the tackle, you can't help but to get excited. When Crosby makes a tackle, it does something to you. So it's nice to have that 1-2 punch over there. And again, people say he's found a fountain of youth. I would just say he might be the sprout of the youth because he shows no signs of stopping at all.
All right, Rashad, before we wrap this one up, how do you see Sunday playing out? What do you think the biggest difference need to be for the Raiders to come home with the dub? And then if you were to give a little pep talk, a little pregame speech, what would that sound like? Because you said as you got older, you became one of those guys that wanted to be the energetic guy in the room that pulled guys along, helped pull the rope. So what would that sound like?
Yeah, I think the keys to victory for this game. I will put a lot of emphasis on my special teams this week because it's going to be field control. We're gonna bring this game in the trenches. We're gonna shorten the field because of naturally. We're going to blitz. We're going to be very physical. We're going to get in control fast. So keys to victory definitely is going to be special team for the field play, emphasize on some nice run games, some counters, instead of trying to just be physical straight down your mouth. Now, in a pep talk, I mean, I would remind the players, you know, remember, nobody's forcing you to do this. It's a privilege to play in the National Football League. That last name on the back of your jersey, go represent it and work together to get a win for this logo on the side of your helmet. From there, let's go out and build our resume, man. Because at the end of the day, when you deal with 53 grown men, everybody has a different reason. And you don't ever know what makes somebody tick. Some people could be out there playing for their grandma. Somebody playing for a check. Somebody else playing to prove a point. I don't care why you play. I need all 11 on the field at the same time coming collectively to play your best. And I'm going to remind everybody why they're here. So, yeah, go represent the last name, get a win for the logo.
If that ain't a pregame speech, build your resume. I like that. I like that a lot. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for watching, for listening to the pregame presented by Twitch. You can find all our episodes up on Raiders.com, the Raiders YouTube page, or wherever you find your podcast. For the great Rashad Jennings, I am Vince Sapienza. Thanks for joining us. We will talk to you next week. Enjoy the game on Sunday.